Do you think that Ken Livingstone should be banned permanently from the Labour Party? He has only been suspended after he made those remarks about Adolf Hitler and Zionism.
The Labour Party will hopefully be implementing the recommendations of the Chakrabarti report. I'll be surprised if he won't be expelled on the basis of what they have written about what the considerations that they will be taking into mind will be.
And do you think he should be, though?
I think he should.
You think he should? Because from what you said there, you talked a little bit, and this is another question I wanted to come on to. You talked about different forms of anti-Semitism and the way it can be cloaked in anti-Zionism. How do you feel as the leader of the British Orthodox Jewish community when you are asked to defend or comment on Israel's foreign policy?
I'm a faith leader. So I'm the head of the Jewish faith here in the UK. And when it comes to the policies of governments, that happens to be political. Sometimes political issues are faith issues as well. I'm a passionate Zionist. I'm a supporter of the State of Israel, but I'm not the ambassador of the State of Israel. And clearly, I'm proud of Israel's record in so many different respects. But at the same time, my role is to be the head of the Jewish faith here in the UK.
So it's an unfair question in some ways?
I suppose so.
Well, and when you talk about the Labour Party having that historic tie with the Jewish community, is there a party that is a safer place for Jews, would you say, in Britain today?
Well, I'm hoping that the Labour Party will be a safe place for Jews. There are many, many members and supporters of the Labour Party, and hopefully the leadership will, get their act together, and once again, Jews in the Labour Party will feel totally comfortable. Unfortunately, right now, that is not the case.
Now, some people, let's talk about the New World Order. Your reaction then to the election of Donald Trump, what was it?
I'm nervous. I'm concerned. It is so sad to reflect on the fact that the next president of the United States is a man who unfortunately is a racist, somebody who has deeply offended many people. However, Trump as president hopefully will be a different character, and time will tell what the Trump presidency will be about. I think that there are two main narratives here. One which many people talk about is the anti-establishment narrative. But in addition to that, there's an anti-globalization narrative. The Economist has been running a series of articles now for about 9 months on what they call drawbridge up versus drawbridge down. I would prefer to call it particular versus universal. Our societies are being called upon to respond to three critical questions. The first relates to immigration. Do we want to open our borders to endless numbers of immigrants and to refugees, or do we want to close our borders? Second question relates to trade. Do we want to engage in open, free global trade, or should we be giving preference to local businesses? And the third relates to culture. Are we willing to embrace other cultures and enable them to permeate through to our own culture, or would we prefer to preserve and maintain our own unique culture? And depending on your answers to these three questions, you'll now be realigning yourself within the new world order of particular versus universal. And so we're finding, fascinatingly, that both from the right and the left, people are realigning themselves. For example, in Greece and Spain, you've got populist leftist governments, and then in Hungary and Poland, ultranationalist governments, and the policies of all of them seem to be the same, because there is this new order. In North America, we have now a divergence of view between Canada and the United States. In Canada, the government of Justin Trudeau is encouraging the Canadian people to take in tens of thousands of Syrian refugees, to engage in open, free global trade, to enable the Canadian culture to be influenced positively by newcomers. Now, under Trump in the United States, we're going to be seeing something very different.
Well, I was looking at some of the reactions, and there was a rabbi, for instance, in New York who said last night, I'm shaking, I'm scared, I feel like this is 1930s Germany again. What do you make of those specific comparisons? Because people not necessarily saying Donald Trump is in any way like Hitler in terms of actions or what could go ahead, but the comparison of somebody who shouts these sorts of divisive campaign slogans, these awful things that people feel they have been said about, whether it's getting rid of Muslims from America, and then this sort of tidal wave of working class, how it's been defined. In fact, that isn't actually the true when we look at some of the figures, working class support. Do you feel uncomfortable about those comparisons with the rise of Hitler and the rise of Donald Trump?
Our times are certainly not like the 1930s, but there is a lot of room for concern. But I would stress that the Trump presidency is not going to be like what we've seen from Trump in the lead-up to his election. Unfortunately, though, as a candidate, he has set a tone which has presented a danger to our society. And if he continues with that tone as president, then it's going to be all the more dangerous.
And any of your Jewish counterparts or friends in America, are they concerned about what a Trump presidency will mean for Jews?
Some are and some are not. Some are welcoming his election and others are deeply concerned. I'm amongst those who are concerned.
And for you then, interfaith relations are obviously hugely important. I remember seeing your selfie with the mayor, Sadiq Khan. I like that a lot, and the Archbishop of Canterbury there. But what is it like, would you say, on the ground between, let's say, Jewish and Muslim communities in the UK? How are interfaith relations there? Because what's being debated in this new world order is whether multiculturalism is working.
Yeah, I think you've put your finger right there on the heart of the issue, because I see interfaith relations as being a pyramid-shaped structure. Right at the very top, we have faith leaders. We get on brilliantly. I have the most wonderful, personal, warm relationships with the heads of all faiths in this country. However, we're not sufficiently allowing that warmth and cooperation to filter down to grassroots level. This coming week, the Archbishop of Canterbury and I are co-hosting an event which I'm really excited about. It's going to take place at Lambeth Palace. Some 70 priests and rabbis are joining together for an entire day of study and reflection together. It's our attempt to arrange for faith leaders in this country to engage with each other, and we're pairing them off so that they're coming together with their local counterpart in the church or in the synagogue in their area. And the entire emphasis of the day will be follow-up. We want what's happening at the top to filter down into our actual communities so that there is more genuine understanding and more cooperation.
So you, as the Chief Rabbi and the Archbishop of Canterbury, you're playing matchmaker for the day between the respective prayer leaders.
Absolutely.
And then specifically on my question about relations between Jewish and Muslim communities, I was talking about this to the Labour MP Naz Shah only a few weeks ago on my programme. How would you typify them at the moment in the UK?
We've got a lot that we need to be doing. And the Muslim world is not structured as the Christian and Jewish worlds are, because there isn't natural universal leadership in their midst, and sometimes it's difficult to know who to speak to and how to reach the grassroots levels within the mosques in this country. We are trying very hard. We have some outstanding organizations. We do get on well together, and there's lots more that we need to do.
And do you feel, I mean, faith schools obviously play a part in this and how communities work. One of the first things Theresa May did when she became Prime Minister was announce a relaxation on the rules of how faith schools select pupils, so removing this cap. I presume you welcome that.
Totally. I had called for that. We believe that it's important to have an immersive Jewish education, further to which our Jewish children can go out into the world and integrate well and be responsible members of our society. Again, it's a combination of the particular and the universal. We're proud of our own particular identity, but we exist as a people in order, as the prophets say, to be a light unto the nations. You can only be that if you integrate, if you're part of society. So our track record shows that we've got the right recipe. Strong, outstanding Jewish schools which achieve amongst the best results in the country, preparing our children to be good citizens.
You don't think, as some people maybe struggle with the idea of being fully integrated when you are educated separately? How would you answer that concern?
I answer it purely by showing our track record. Look at what we have done. We have raised children to be proud of their Jewishness and also to be good citizens, to work very well within society, to integrate absolutely totally. It works very well.